Happy Saturday, guys. It's Barb with Inspire Me 360. And in this video, I want to chat a little bit about divine union. So what am I talking about in terms of divine union? What does that mean? And is it relevant to your situation or any of our situations? So essentially, I'm going to break down what I mean by divine union. So when we think of that special relationship or spousal relationship that you have with another, there can be different degrees of connection, and none of these connections between the masculine and the feminine are necessarily wrong. They all have catalysts for learning. They all have an ability to teach us through this special type of relationship and to hold the potential for an extreme amount of growth. And so before I get specifically into the concept of divine relationship, I want to talk about what a lot of metaphysical and sort of spiritual teachings deem the karmic relationship. So when we talk about karma, the karmic relationship, we're talking about individuals that do not share our exact soul's frequency or are not particularly close to our soul's blueprint, okay? But they are other souls that basically pre-incarnation, there was karmic contracts that carried through generations, through previous lifetimes, and through the desire for growth. Because again, we have to remember that we come to planet Earth, each and every one of our souls comes to planet Earth because it has a desired path it wants to learn and grow through. And when I say path, I don't mean like there's just one lesson, okay? There's a multitude of lessons, and in any given lifetime, a soul can choose a very complex life path that has multiple catalysts and very extreme, a very extreme representation of the reality that they are experiencing. But this is chosen by the soul pre-incarnation so that there is an extreme amount of growth. But we have to remember that Earth is not just about souls learning the lessons, the growth. It's also about experiencing love and light and unconditional love. And we experience the reflection of that love through the mirror of the other, okay? So again, when we're dealing with karmic type relationships, there still is a lot of love energy exchanged. Sometimes that love energy is tough love. So that karmic soul or that karmic individual is mirroring back not flaws, but distortions essentially within your soul's makeup. And this is part of the descent, okay? So we choose as incarnated souls into a physical form to descend into a lower three-dimensional reality. And through the process of this descent and the spiritual amnesia, we do this again to reach a higher level of consciousness. So, you know, the saying goes, a tree can only grow as tall as its roots are deep. So through the mechanism of descending, we learn all of the complexities of the lower vibrational frequencies in a very virtual three-dimensional reality, which allows our souls to catalyze the lesson. So what I mean by catalyze is it becomes crystallized within our light body so that it becomes the new blueprint of what we are. So if you've ever seen the movie, The Adjustment Bureau. Sorry, I forgot there for a second. But so if you've ever seen in the movie The Adjustment Bureau, you get a very cinematic explanation of a life plan or path, and how you can see through karmic law, really properly depicted in this movie, how when we have choice points, or as we make choices, things are adjusted, which within the quantum field or within our reality, and a new path or a new timeline essentially emerges based on what we are now doing with karmic lessons, with the way that we are showing up in terms of our soul's vibration. So how we can understand this is, okay, so let's say that there are particular lessons that we as a soul have desired to learn in this incarnation. So we, pop into a body, we're born, we come down to planet Earth, we start learning and growing, we make some good choices, we make some bad choices, we make some better choices, we make some worse choices. And through all of these different, essentially, pathways that we're going down, the quantum field is recalibrating in every now moment to adjust our timeline in terms of the trajectory of where our life path is going. This is why, again, as we maneuver or as we ascend along the pathway towards unconditional love, and as we remove the distortion, so distortion being that which is not correlated to the love light frequency, as we crystallize these lessons, or as we pass these lessons on or within our incarnation, we see a more beautiful external expression of our life. And this is where I'm going to circle back to the law of attraction. As we do better, as we become better in the expression of what we are giving to the field mirrors back to us a more beautiful expression of life. There is the additional layer of the collective consciousness. So although we can work very hard on our own life lessons, we are also connected through the grid of collective consciousness to every other being and life form on the planet. And through that connection, we also have to carry the karmic baggage of the collective. So that's where people will say, or when I'm talking to people about these concepts, they'll say, well, I'm expressing, or I'm doing the utmost in terms of removing the distortions, opening my heart, pushing my consciousness up towards unconditional love, but there's still wars happening, there's pandemics, there's children dying of cancer, there's all these things. So this doesn't make sense to me, because I'm also seeing on my external reality a lot of chaos and a lot of distortion. But that is because we as souls are connected into this collective consciousness grid. And I want to explain this also a little bit further, is that this connection that we've agreed to is absolutely in and of itself unconditional love, because we've tethered ourselves through these energetic bonds to other souls. We have agreed to, in their distortion, to pull them up as we ascend. So kind of this mentality that no one soul gets left behind, and that just in and of itself is unconditional love. It is, in a sense, sacrificing one's high vibrational output for the collective due to that pervasive love light energy. So now I'm going to circle this back to divine union. So in terms of true divine union, that is when there is an extreme level of balance mirrored back to you from the other in a perfect semblance of an equilibrium of your true vibrational frequency. And everybody has a unique blueprint. Everybody has a unique a uniquely perfect soul expression that is calibrated perfectly with the divine, which is an expression of love, light, unconditionally, when it is in its perfectly balanced, highest expressed form. However, most of us on planet Earth are in a spiritual amnesia state. We are in a high level of distortion, and we are not vibrating at our highest frequency. This is not something to be worried about either, because remember what I said earlier in this video, that the ability to perceive a higher level of love, or that growth towards a greater expansion of the consciousness, is only possible through its opposite. So we have to understand what love is not to understand what love is. And this is, again, how our universe functions. These are the innate laws of creation and how everything in our dualistic universe was designed in terms of our consciousness. That's not proper English. The learning of our consciousness, both from a very finite singular perception and a collective perception. Okay, so what does it mean when we are going through karmic relationships, and what is the most loving way to perceive that tough love mirrored reality that is shown back to us, essentially? It is through the understanding of the self, the courage to look deep into one's own soul's shadows and one's own distortion, that we are able to learn the lessons that we came here to learn. It is a very poignant battle of self-discovery. The battle, even though sometimes it expresses externally, and in an unawakened state, we will perceive the fight as an external one. It's us against the world. The world is chaotic. The world is hard. We haven't been given enough. We basically got a raw deal, whatever it is. When we are in an unawakened state, we are going to perceive the external world as attacking us. As we start to wake up, and a great, if you are interested in a good read, the Course in Miracles really highlights this quest in terms of the individual. Of course, there are a myriad of books you can read that are about the soul's ascension, the soul's journey. Many of the great religious books started out in their most pure form about this journey of ascension and this journey that is propelling us towards the divine. Okay, but like everything else here on planet Earth, there is an extreme amount of distortion still present, even in what we would call the most pure works. And people are not necessarily going to agree with me on this, but again, if the teachings from these texts that are highly metaphorical are given in the correct context, they can be very useful in terms of attuning the consciousness. But unfortunately, when we have doctrines given or preached from an unawakened perspective, they can be focused or distorted in a way that can incite attack, that can incite judgment, that can incite a lot of the lower vibrational thought concepts. So I'm not even going to get into dogmatic discussion, because again, I don't feel that it's useful in terms of this particular video, and it's a discussion that I do believe many souls on the planet are not really willing to have in an open, non-violent or non-emotional way. Because when we have highly charged emotions, specifically around things like dogmatic teachings, we've seen this throughout history, it leads to extreme distortion, which again can incite war, attacks, violence, misunderstanding, extreme acts of, again, discrimination, abuses. So hence why I don't want to get into that discussion really at all in any of these videos, because it's just, there's so much that's up to interpretation. But I'm going to circle it back to divine union. I'm going to actually make a 2-part video in this series because I feel like I've gone into a lot of karmic law, a little bit more of the ascension and the descension in this video, and it's going to turn into a longer video. So this will be part 1, and I'm going to do a part 2 specifically on relationship.